All right. All right. Let's see here. A lot of moving pieces. All right, so let's review. And I'm still working on my timeline. It's not going to be as simple as I thought it was because there's a lot of predictions that I've made over 2 years. But let's just go with specifically what I've been talking about with NVIDIA. Right. I introduced NVIDIA predictions probably about around this time next last year, right? February, March. We started going over, analyzing each Max 7. And when we got to NVIDIA, one of the very first things that I said was they had just come into the $1 trillion arena. And they hadn't hit 2 trillion yet. They hadn't hit 3 trillion yet. They had just come into the Max 7. And I said, if NVIDIA does not diversify, they will not survive. And you have to understand the ecosystem of um, a duopoly or oligopoly. Let me give you an example of a duopoly. A duopoly would be Apple and Samsung. They control the majority of the cell phone market. That is a duopoly. You either have a Android phone or iPhone. That's a duopoly. A oligopoly, you can go to the airlines, right? You got Delta, you got all of these major airlines. Now, Spirit and Blue are not a part of that, right? So you got the larger airlines that have been around for decades. They've merged. They bought out all of this. So you have like a oligopoly of three or four or more. And the reason why I mention these ecosystems is because they don't want new members. They don't want new members, and they will work together, even though they're in competition with each other. They will work together to make sure that there are no new people that come in, because Blue was supposed to come into the oligopoly several years ago, and they have done several things to make sure that that doesn't happen. That does not happen. Spirit was trying to get bought out by somebody. No, it was supposed to be a merger, I believe, and they denied that. So they will lobby the Congress. They will. I don't want to say the wrong word, but they will influence the courts to make sure that certain things don't happen. So that's why I say when NVIDIA came into the Mag 7 space, that is an oligopoly. That is a complete oligopoly. They may have different products, but they don't like new people coming in to that $1 trillion arena. And they will work together to make sure you don't last. And the only reason why NVIDIA did last was because they diversified. They were able to compete with each one of the oligopoly. And if they didn't do that, they wouldn't have. They would have lost revenue. The oligopoly would have done a bunch of things with the lobbyists and all this other stuff to kick them out. But they were able to survive because they diversified in their products and competition. So today we're going to go through. They're currently having the GTC conference. There's a lot of new announcements, a lot of new technology, a lot of new partnerships. We're going to go over my prediction of Tesla. I'm sorry, of NVIDIA coming out with a product to directly compete with every single one of the Mag 7. We're going to start off with what they've already have previously, and then we're going to bring in any new technology that was announced at the CES last month and the GTC this week. You will not learn this anywhere else, guys. Everybody else is looking at charts. Everyone else is listening to the news. Nobody does what we do. We don't just look at the price. We want to know why the price is moving. Everyone else is price hunters. We are value hunters. And if we can find the future value, then we already know how that price is going to move because price follows value. Nobody else is going to teach you this. If we can find the future value, then we don't have to follow the price. And the greatest advantage and edge that we have is we know why the price is moving. We know the destination of the price because the price is going to catch up with the value. I cannot stress this enough. I cannot accent the power that this gives you. Follow the value, don't follow the price. Everyone else is following the price. And it's so sad that they're following that price on a chart and don't know why it's moving. Because they were never taught to find out why it's moving. They were taught that it's built into the price. That's technical analysis 101. Efficient market theory. It's built into the price. We know that that is not a true statement because there are things right now happening all over the world in every supply chain that's not factored into the price. And if we can go out and find an economic event, a corporate release, a geopolitical conflict. What's the last one? Oh, new technology coming out. If we can find these things, we know, and it's happening right now as we speak, and it's not built into the price. So we go out and find those things. We go into the supply chain and find supply and demand. We find technology that can be added to the supply into the supply chain to increase supply and demand. We go out and find something happening in the Panama Canal and the Suez Canal or some other geopolitical trade wars, all of this stuff. And we already know that it's going to affect either the drive or the disruption of supply and demand. Don't worry, I'm saying it now, but I'm going to show you the application as we go through the video. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to specify that we're going to basically kind of look at three different things. All right, NVIDIA is either going to service, partner, or compete. These are the three options. And it's not just NVIDIA. This is across the board on every corporation. They're either going to service, partner, or compete. And any one of these three is value. It's going to add more product, more production. It's going to add more revenue. It's going to add more market value. So as we go through each one of these, the majority of these will be competition because that was the prediction that I made. They're going to come out with a product that will compete with every single one of the Mag 7. But you're also going to notice that NVIDIA doesn't put all their eggs in one basket. They're the number one service provider with their chips and data centers. So that's a part of it. And then here's the other part. And this is like blanket that every corporation, especially the Mag 7, they will partner with you first. And while they're partnering with you, they're building competition on the back end. They will partner with you first. And then while they're partnering with you, They're developing a competitive product on the back end. So every partnership you see will eventually turn into competition. So let's start with the right thing. This is something that I mentioned yesterday that I kind of want to reiterate. When you hear about NVIDIA, because we talked about NVIDIA being a catalyst for the recovery, just had a correction. We predicted the correction last year. I predicted the correction in November, December of last year, and I said it's going to come in the first 3 months of 2020, 2025. I thought it was going to be natural. I did not know they were going to make it happen. But here we are 3 months later, another prediction fulfilled. So now we're done with this correction. I'm still looking for that Dow Jones correction, don't get me wrong. But, according to the markets, they say that we're done with the correction, no problem. So now we're working on the recovery. And I said that the recovery for a correction is about 3 months. And I think in that time period of that 3 months is when we're going to get that Dow Jones correction. But let's wait for it. Let's see what happens. So in this recovery phase, we got to start somewhere. And we're going to start with NVIDIA. NVIDIA has this new event this week where they're introducing new technology, new partnerships. They're introducing, they're servicing, they're partnering, and they're competing. All right. So the very first thing that I mentioned yesterday was every single thing that NVIDIA introduces is going to automatically apply to every other corporation because NVIDIA is the infrastructure. So as NVIDIA is announcing what they're offering, they're simultaneously announcing what other corporations will eventually be offering because of the servicing and partnering. Let me say that for you again. Every single announcement that NVIDIA makes, they're making it for themselves, but because they are the backbone and infrastructure for basically every major corporation, they're automatically announcing the infrastructure of every other corporation. And that is the reason why NVIDIA will pull away from everyone else. So we start that off by introducing, they have a whole new chipset. So we'll start here. There's two things I want to mention with this article. Number one, they have right now, they started off with the Hopper, right? Last year, they started off with the Hopper. Last year, they introduced Blackwell, the dual chip technology. So later this year, and you have to watch the GTC kind of keynote in order to understand this, or you can research the Blackwell Ultra. Later this year, they're going to come out with Blackwell Ultra. Then they're going to introduce Rubin, which is another computer chip. That's probably going to come out in 2027. Then obviously they have this Ultra kind of technology, so they're going to come out with a Rubin Ultra. And then in 2028, and this was mentioned in the keynote, that sometime in the future, there's a physicist named Feynman, and they're going to be coming out with a new chip called Feynman sometime 2027, 2028. And then they're probably going to come out with a Feynman Ultra. So they introduce the next set of chips over the next 3 or 4 years. All right, so we have that. And once again, they're introducing this for them, but who's going to be using these chips? And that's why I say, as they introduce their own products, services, infrastructure, they are automatically introducing the infrastructure of every other corporation. Let's prove this to you as we go a little bit above, and let's show you how it works. It says that they sold $1.3 million worth of GPUs of Hopper in 2023. A year later, in 2024, they sold 3 times the amount, 3.6 million, of the Blackwell GPUs, triple their revenue. with the Blackwell GPUs. And then it says that those were bought by Amazon, Google, Azure, and Oracle Cloud. So even though NVIDIA has their own data centers, they are servicing other data centers. And this is why I told you they're going to come out with their own product line. Because why are they giving other people the infrastructure when they can just create their own? Why am I giving you my technology when I can just keep my technology and then compete against you? This is it, guys. Huang has a brilliant business model. He is switching the game. Why am I offering you my technology when I can just build it and keep it for myself? You are dead in the water. I will give you an inferior version. I'll keep my new technology for like 2 or 3 years. And then when I come out with my next set of technology, then I'll offer you my old. NVIDIA is always staying ahead of the game. The competition always has an inferior model. This is what's going to separate NVIDIA. This is how NVIDIA is going to pull away from the rest of the Mag 7. Because they're going to now directly compete with every single one of the Mag 7. And not just on the corporate side. We're going to get into that in a minute. They're going consumer side as well. They're going to compete on the consumer side. Market share. There's only 100% market share. And if they get into that consumer space, they're taking revenue away from the Mag 7. This is what I said about diversifying last year. If they want to survive, they're going to have to diversify. I didn't go to college. So if I can come up with this with no college education, imagine what the collegiate professionals can do. If I can come up with this, you already know that they have to come up with this and probably more. They probably coming up with stuff that I've never heard of. But I know business. I knew he would have to diversify. I did not think he was going this far. So this just give you an example that when NVIDIA comes up with something new, they're not just coming up with something new for them. They're coming up with something new for the whole industry. Because every single Mag 7 and market leader is using their infrastructure. But you're going to slowly start seeing them pull away as they start offering it in-house, directly competing with the Mag 7 and the rest of the market leaders. So this is the first thing I wanted to introduce. The second thing, and this is absolutely brilliant, and this was mentioned in that keynote. And this is just one of the things, but I heard him say open source a couple of times. So here is how this works. They're building, and they already have a library. They already have a library of what they call APIs. So you can go inside NVIDIA's cloud. I'm going to kind of call it that. So you can go into their database of all these different programs, all these different programming languages, all this different coding, and you can plug. Because think about it, you're plugging your company, your supply chain, your technology, your AI all of this, your computing power, you're plugging it in to NVIDIA's data centers. And when you plug it into the data center, you automatically get this library of different models. That's basically what they call it, like, right? A library of different models, programming models. Well, he decided to make it open source. And I'm going to tell you what this means. You might have saw it, you might have watched the video, you might have seen open source. Let me tell you what he's doing. And it is absolutely freaking brilliant, because he allows, and that's what's going to happen a little bit later this year. They're going to have another tech conference for programmers. Like I said, I don't know if NVIDIA is going to be invited to that Taiwan conference, but Taiwan Semiconductor does a conference in Taiwan every year. And like I said, they're not vibing right now, but I still think that because of the business, NVIDIA will still be invited to that tech conference in Taiwan, and that is all for programming. So here's what I mean: there are programmers all over the planet. So if they open up their library of coding to all of these millions of programmers, these people can go in there, get that, and they can build other applications. And if NVIDIA has their own programming language, their own operating system, their own data centers, then they're allowing these people to build their library. They're allowing these people to expand their library. They don't have to pay programmers to develop. We'll make it open source. You go out and develop, and then we get to use it because it's our code, because it is open source, because there's no other place you can use it except on our platform. So it's not like you can build this and then go someplace else and use it to compete with me. You can't. You have to use it on my platform. You have to use it with my OS. You have to use it with my infrastructure. This is not like Samsung, where you can go out and create your own open source and use it on another device. No, there's only one device, the NVIDIA data center, that is highly guarded. Absolutely brilliant. They don't have to pay a bunch of programmers to develop things. Now, they already have a nice library to start off with, but by making this open source, they're going to, like I said, accelerate their models. Because you have millions of people going out and making applications. And this is also going to increase their infrastructure and increase their offerings, because people are going to come into that database, that library, and it's going to grow exponentially as all of these programmers are using the open source to come up with new applications. NVIDIA is going to get that new coding, that new application. They're probably going to tweak it a little bit to make it a little bit better. Have you guys ever seen the movie? I gotta go look it up. Give me a second. Um, oh, it's killing me. I have all the actors in my head, and I cannot remember none of their names. Let me put in Shawshank Redemption. I got to do several degrees because I know this actor. I just can't remember his name. He was the
What
villain of the story.
what's the premise of the movie?
Um, it was based on a guy that was supposed to be basically like a um What's the guy from Microsoft?
Bill Gates. You talking about antitrust then?
Antitrust. That's it. That's it. That's it. That's it. Antitrust. So basically, what he did was he basically released a certain code on the internet, and he had all of these programmers going out and making new applications with his code. And then he's monitoring. Now, like I said, it's a villain story. So he's monitoring what they're doing. He's hacking into the camera on their computer, watching them, build whatever they're building. He would send people to kill everybody and then steal the code. Okay, I'm not saying they're going to go that far, but it's a prime example of what NVIDIA is doing. Send it out there, let them develop the code. We find it, we make it a little bit better, we tweak it for our own platform. So no matter what other version is out there, we have a more superior version. But that was the movie. It was called Antitrust. Tim Robbins, and I can't remember the main character. Um,
Ryan Philippe.
Ryan Felipe. And what was the girl? Um, she did a lot of romantic comedies back in the 90s.
Um, she played in that Joe Black movie. I don't remember her name.
Yeah, I can't remember her name either. She was an inferior version of Winona Ryder. She always gave me Winona Ryder vibes. I gotta put it in the movie. What was her freaking name? Oh, Rachel Lee Cook. And I always sleep on Claire Forlani, man. Boy, I sleep on this chick. I forgot she was in this. If you haven't seen it, go look at it. Really, really good movie. And Microsoft did not like this movie because they knew they were kind of referring. And I'm gonna tell you why people thought it was like a shade on Microsoft, because they showed a scene in Tim Robbins' house, the character that he was playing, and everyone knew at that time that if you went into Bill Gates' house, that when you went into certain rooms, the pictures would change. And I don't know what this technology was. It never took off. Never seen anybody else, talk about doing it. But as you walk through his house, if you pass by a certain picture, depending on your mood or your the temperature in your body, I don't know what the metric was, but the picture would change. And that was something that happened with the character for Tim Robbins. So that was the point of people kind of referencing that this was a kind of like a Bill Gates type of character. But basically, yeah, he was monitoring other people's coding. He would steal the coding and then they would just disappear. And that was kind of the end of the movie, because some of the programmers were friends of Ryan Felipe and Rachel Lee Cook. Really, really good movie, guys. You ever want to go check it out? But I say that just to kind of prove to you that this is not the first time this is done. I believe that Microsoft did this. I believe that Google did this. Google is also open source. So this is not the first time that this concept has come out. Google owns the Android device, the Android platform. So it's basically what Google's already done. But that is another piece of the puzzle, because I'm going to bring it back home, because they're either servicing, they're partnering, or they're competing. And this is another version of partnering. It's not a 50-50 partnership, but it's still a partnership. You develop it for free, you get to use it, and I get to upscale it and then put it in my library. So you're really going to see um, the applications of what NVIDIA is going to be able to offer exponentially. Exponentially. What they're going to be able to offer in a year from now, and they don't have to pay the programs for it. Absolutely brilliant. So now let's go ahead and go through the rest of the Mag 7. We're gonna hit on each one. I'm gonna try to take it in the order of their value, and I'm gonna give you another prediction at the end of this. At the end of this presentation, I'm gonna drop another prediction for you guys. So let's get into Apple first. What does Apple offer? What are Apple's offerings? There are two main things. Well, there's technically three, but what is
Phones and
Apple's
laptops.
two primary offerings?
Phones and laptops.
Okay, phones and tablets, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm saying. They offer the laptops, they offer the computers, but they're not selling as well as like Microsoft or or HP or any of that. They because that's the thing about Apple. Apple's Apple's devices are very expensive. They have a very closed network. So they're not trying to mass produce to everybody. They like their little, exclusivity type of thing. So, if they decided to do that, they could, and they can mass produce the tablets and I'm sorry, the laptops and desktops, but they're not doing that. But they still offer it. And I believe that the majority of those offerings are contract, government contracts, corporate contracts. So they don't really offer it to the end user. Well, they do, but not on the same scale. So I'm not gonna focus on their computing, their laptops and desktops. We're gonna focus on their phones and their tablets. So first off, let's show you the NVIDIA tablet. Now, obviously, they got to start somewhere. And we know that their primary market, that they have a 95% monopoly. They have a 95% monopoly in the gaming. So why would they not stop there? Start there. So they're going to come out with a tablet, Shield tablet, K1, and we know the potential. They're introducing it into the marketplace. They can iron out any bugs with it. And if they wanted to mass produce it after this, they already have it. The NVIDIA Shield Tablet K1. Right now, it's only for gaming, but we know how this works. They're going to be able to upgrade this tablet, iron out all the kinks, and they can offer it to the consumers on the front end just as a regular tablet. Now you can easily say that this is also going to compete with Amazon. It's also going to compete with Microsoft and Google. But we know that the primary tablet right now, and I've bought every tablet you can think of because I don't like the Apple tablet. There's so many bugs in it, and for them to be $1 trillion corporation, their tablet should work a lot better. Does anybody else have a problem with the Apple tablet where when you click on a place you want the cursor to go, it won't do it? You trying to tell me with all your trillions of dollars that you can't fix where the cursor goes? Man, I'm so frustrated with the Apple tablet. But it's the best tablet on the market. But it is still competing with all the others, the Google tablets, the Microsoft tablets, and the Amazon tablets. And we don't know, if this is going to go into even the Kindle, where it's just for reading books or something like that. But for whatever the application is, we do know that they have designed and developed their own tablet. The applications for it in the future is up to them, but they got to start somewhere. The second thing a lot of people don't know is that they have another chip for phones. They have a mobile GPU called the Tegra K1. So if they wanted to build their own phone, they could. All they got to do is take that tablet and shrink it down a little bit. As I said, why would they offer their products to somebody else when they can just build their own. This is currently no longer available. This was available in 2022, 2023, and 2024. I don't know why they stopped. But I explained this to you guys that they never really stop. They still have a group of people. It may be a group of 5 people that will continue to develop it. I don't know why they stopped. But when you see them take something off the market, and I say the same thing about Apple developing that car. If you think Apple stopped developing that car to compete with Tesla, you're sadly mistaken. They say they abandoned the project. No one ever abandons a project. They just simplified the team down to a few people that can continue to work on it. And if they come up with a new technology, a new breakthrough, they'll add people back onto the team. But don't ever think, unless it's just completely outdated, they never stop. They'll put it in their vault and they'll come back and revisit it later on. So they can pull this Tegra GPU back out, especially with the advancements that they're making. Can you imagine if they came out with a Blackwell mobile, dual chip mobile on the phone? Tegra Ultra? Who knows what they can do with the technologies that they're coming up with? Because the one thing about NVIDIA, they like to shrink the technology down, and they brought that out several times in the keynote. They like to shrink the technology down. So like I said, they stopped offering it for now, but they still have the technology. They still have the product. It's nothing for them to come up with a phone, and they can start offering the phone to other service providers, partnerships with T-Mobile or AT&T or some other, even going over to China. They can easily offer their own phone. Obviously, what do I say they do? They start with a partnership, and that partnership usually extends out until them offering their own product. So they are positioned to compete directly with Google and Apple with the phones. We already have our own chip. Why should we give you our chip? And I'm pretty sure Apple has their own chip. I'm pretty sure. Well, I'm not. I know for a fact Google doesn't. Google is partnering with Snapdragon and a couple of others. But if they have their own mobile chip, GPU chip, we know it's fast. We know it's reliable. We know that the potential of other technologies integrating with it is just going to advance it faster. And when I get into the next set, I'm going to come back to this. When I get into the next thing we're going to be showing you. Because the next thing is they're going to compete with Microsoft. So what are the 2 things that Microsoft offers above everything else? What is Microsoft original offering?
Operating system.
Operating system. There you go. So they have something called base OS. And why would they not when they have all of their own data centers? Of course they're going to have their own OS. DGX OS, NVIDIA base OS, and this is what they're running on the majority of their data centers. And then I'm going to get into this in a second. Let me get into the other thing, because the second thing that Microsoft started to offer was computers. Because Microsoft had the same thing. Why are we just offering the operating system when we can create our own laptops and computers and put our own operating system in it? So this was announced earlier this year that they're coming out with their own line of laptops. And when I say laptops, guys, we're talking about it's on steroids. It is an AI supercomputer on a laptop. This is not your everyday laptop. It's going to blow every other laptop out the water. Remember I said they're going to start offering to the consumer when they've already launched this. But once this gets out there and you have an option of buying one of these laptops, because keep in mind, what let's test you guys out. When they offer this laptop, what community will they offer this to first? We
Gaming?
already mentioned it.
Gaming community?
You got it, my friend. They're
Are
always
you
going to start with the gaming community.
are you sharing your screen?
I'm so sorry. All this time, guys, and you guys are not saying, "Hey, Aaron, you can't see what you're showing."
Hey, you were motivating everybody just off of your speaking.
No problem. They're going to offer it to the gaming community first, and then they just tweak whatever they need to, and then they'll offer it to everyone else in the consumer market. But their test market is always going to be gaming. And the best part about it is that gaming is the best platform to test it on because it uses so much resources. You want to make sure that your laptop is up to par. See how well it runs on a gaming platform. The chip has to be fast. The graphics have to be fast.
And you get more feedback from the users.
There you go. Because they are going to tell you when something doesn't work.
And all that data is gold is like oil for them.
You got it, my friend. They can fix problems very quickly. We're going to get into a little bit later on how this is going to connect to other services that they're offering, but they always start with the gaming community. And when I tell you these things are super powered, and I have another article, let me see if I can find it. You know what? It'll come back up later on. With all these links, it'll come back up later on. But here's the other thing. This was also mentioned in yesterday's broadcast and presentation that they're getting into quantum computing, which they already have. But two things that they're coming up with, they came up with a quantum day. You know, so there's a April 14th, I believe it's going to be. And obviously, I guess that's coming this April, where it's just going to be maybe a conference or maybe programmers are getting together and they're really going to focus on the advancement of quantum computing. So Quantum Day, I believe it's April 14th. I might be wrong. I know it's in April. I looked it up yesterday. But every day from now on, they're going to have Quantum Day, where everybody can kind of talk about the advancement of quantum. But here's something that I picked up. So much information being put out there, but you guys should already know what CUDA is. CUDA is this small little program that accelerates the programming because the CUDA can process things that takes away that processing from the actual chip. Let me try to explain it again. And they've had the CUDA guys since they were doing video. Before they ever came out with the Blackwell and all of this dual chip, they've had CUDA for over a decade. And what they were doing originally, they were using it to take some of the processing away from the video chip. But now they've advanced the CUDA programming because the CPU and the GPU is doing all this processing, but CUDA is now designed to take some of that processing away from the chips. So everything is running faster, everything is running optimum. So they're taking this CUDA technology and they're putting it in other sections of their infrastructure. They're putting it in their AI section, but specifically, last year they came up with CUDA Q, and I mentioned this last year. Right? They're coming out with CUDA Q. Let me see if I can find this in the article. CUDA Quantum. So basically, and you would think that quantum computing wouldn't need a CUDA programming language on the side to take away the processing, but they still have it. But I'm introducing this with the concept of operating system. This still falls in the operating system. It's just a quantum version of it. So these are the things that they are developing to compete against Microsoft. So what is the and I know the number one thing with Amazon is their shopping platform. We're not going to get there yet. What is the other thing that Amazon offers that a lot of people don't realize? What is the number one thing that Amazon offers on the corporate level?
Cloud services.
Cloud computing.
You got it, AWS. So let's see how NVIDIA is going to compete with that. They're coming out with their own cloud on the consumer side. They already got the data centers locked in on corporate side. So why would they not offer it to the end user? And I showed you that a little bit earlier when we showed you that all of these cloud technologies are using it. Cisco, Google, Amazon, they're already using their chips. Remember we showed you this? AWS, Cloud, Azure, and Oracle are using the Blackwell chips. Why should we offer you our chips when we can just create our own? We can create our own cloud. We don't need you. We already have the data centers. And we got data centers going up all over the world. So they're going to be offering cloud technology to the end user. And let's see if you've been paying attention. Who's the first person that they're going to offer it to?
Gamers.
You got it, my friend.
Yeah, they've been having cloud technology. At least Sony and Microsoft both been battling with this cloud ownership of games, and there's been a huge split. And I suspect that's what caused GameStop to really being relevant any longer, because everybody now could just use their console to purchase new and used games, but they're limited because there are very few developers. So that's going to really open up new developers, new gaming opportunity, and it's going to really spark a lot more diversity that once was there at the beginning of a lot of the gaming hype.
Well, I'm going to tell you, because you're dead on. You're dead on target. Because I'm going to tell you the moment that GameStop became irrelevant. Microsoft came up with the idea of creating an online library of all their games.
Yep.
And I don't know if you guys know this, about 2 or 3 years ago, you start seeing Microsoft start buying up all these gaming, well, just games. So what's the number one game on the phone? It wasn't Angry Birds, but it's
It
one
used
of
to be
those type
Candy Crush, I believe. Some
Candy
weird
Crush.
Candy Crush.
Yeah, they bought Candy Crush. They bought Activision. So they got World of Warcraft, StarCraft. So Microsoft just start buying up all these games. And basically all the games that Microsoft owns are the top games that everybody plays on every platform. Because, the whole concept was when they come out with their new Xbox or whatever gaming system they're going to do, all you got to do is log in and you have the library online. And I'm going to tell you that they did that to compete with PlayStation, because PlayStation came up with the concept first. I remember back with PlayStation 3. I used to go into GameStop or go to Amazon, or back then, I'm dating myself. I used to go to Netflix, and what was the other one?
Go ahead and say Blockbuster.
No, not Blockbuster. There was a gaming that they would mail you out the CD.
Yeah, it was a gaming site that was just sending
Yeah, I can't
games.
remember because the two main companies that did it was Netflix,
And GameFly?
GameFly. You would order it online, they would mail you the DVD, and you had to return it or they would charge you. And a lot of people don't know that Netflix used to do this because remember Netflix used to send you out the movie CD, but basically they wiped that whole concept out. No more DVDs showing up. You know, I used to order from them. I used to order from Amazon. I used to take my son to GameStop and for the used games. But even then, we decided like year four. I'm like, you know what? Let's just download it off of PlayStation. And the moment that we started doing that because they had expansion packs, you would buy the game and they have all these expansion packs that would come out later on, downloadable content, DLC. So I'm saying I'm already downloading the DLC off of PlayStation. So let's just get the game. And then once that happens, I guess Microsoft caught on to it and they're like, well, let's just do that. So they had a brilliant plan. Let's go out and just buy a big library of games. And now you just got to download it from our library. No longer. And then you already know the concept, subscription based. And I've already said that is the number one thing that every single one of the Mag 7 has. There's no longer purchasing it once. Remember the back in the day when you would purchase a CD of music? Oh, no. Streaming subscription. Everything is subscription based. So you pay a monthly fee for the subscription to a library of games. Download as much as you want because they know that you can't play it all. So that's the concept. So NVIDIA is going to be offering their own cloud technology to the gaming community. It's called GeForce Now. And this is only going to grow, and then they're going to switch it over to just regular cloud. Directly competing with Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, and Google. Now, there was something that I wanted to come back on with the laptops, because if you think about the tablets and the computer chip, think about the fact that they have that laptop. They can take everything that they learn about that laptop, everything that they can create for that laptop. They can bring it. They can shrink it down and then add it to their phones and tablets. And obviously, they can go the other direction and do desktops. And you know what they're going to start? They're going to create a gaming desktop. And that's coming full circle. Because I remember I used to own a computer company where we would custom build computers. And back then, 20 years ago, we were buying the Intel chips. We were buying the AMD chips. There was one more. There was one more chip company. So we were buying the video card from AMD, Intel, can't remember the third maker. And then we would buy the video chip from NVIDIA. So full circle, 20 years later, it would make complete sense that NVIDIA is now selling their own computers with their own chips, their own CPUs, their own GPUs. Directly competing against Microsoft, Apple, and Google.
Yeah, the gaming industry is bigger than the movie industry.
Oh, definitely. So now we know what they're doing with Amazon, cloud technology on the front end. They can take those data centers, the same concept, and they can offer cloud technology to the end user. So the next company is Google. And we know Google was primarily search, but Google's also trying to diversify. They have their phones, and they have the robots. So let's check this out. First off, well, the GeForce, like I said, Amazon and Google are probably the largest of the cloud technology. A lot of people don't really consider that because they don't call it, well, they call it Google Cloud, but when you're using Google Doc, all of their applications, it is on their Google Cloud. Their G Drive, that is their cloud. They call it Google Cloud for corporations. They call it G Drive for the end user. So I believe that the G Drive is probably the largest cloud technology for end users. But NVIDIA is going to directly compete with them. Once they come out of that gaming, they'll be able to do that. Now, this is something that they mentioned in the presentation where NVIDIA is going to partner with Google DeepMind, which is their AI. Now, keep in mind, NVIDIA already has their own AI. But for some reason, there's a part that Disney, Google DeepMind, and NVIDIA are going to partner together. And I don't know if you guys seen the Star Wars robot at the very end of the presentation. Now, some people are saying that, it was remote controlled. It may be. But we do know that they do have robots, and the applications of what they're building with NVIDIA, Google, and Disney is just gonna blow your minds away. But this is what I was saying about they start off partnering, and then they break away and kind of create their own. So they're coming out with some major developments between Disney, Google, and NVIDIA. Deep pockets. And I don't know why Disney is not a $1 trillion company. They should be at this point. I don't know why Disney is not a $1 trillion company.
I can see them being bought into by NVIDIA of some sort. They're really looking around. They really seem to be just waiting for somebody to give them a spark and buy them. I think they're tired of the whole sports, the whole broadcast, and they probably want to just have somebody buy into the company and bring some fresh dynamics.
Yeah. But Disney is so diversified. Disney is so diversified between their movies, between their parks, between their retail. Google, yeah, Disney is across the board, man. And then they have ESPN. They're getting into broadcasting. They have their streaming platform. So yeah, if somebody was, and then Disney has all of these the Marvel, Star Wars. They have all these properties, and this is the reason why I say Disney should be a $1 trillion company. Their assets is through the roof, and just their properties, just their park properties, is in the billions. So I don't know why they're not. I think maybe they diversified too much, but for whatever reason, we know it's deep pockets between Disney, Google, and NVIDIA, allocating certain amount of capital to research and development. And what I see is, because they've been talking about this for a while, because I used to live in Orlando. They've been talking about renovating Epcot. A lot of you guys may not know, you're too young. Epcot was supposed to be the city of the future. And it's outdated at this point. Everything that they showed when Epcot originally opened, I remember when Epcot originally opened. I remember the futuristic car. I remember, they shut down a lot of the stuff that was at Epcot. But I remember all the visuals the cities and all this stuff. That's outdated now, guys. That was back in the 80s. Here we are 40 years later. All that stuff has already been created. So if they really want to update Epcot, they got to come with new technology. So that is what I see Disney doing. Disney is looking for new innovations so they can introduce it at Epcot. Can you imagine Disney being able to offer your own Star Wars droid? That's where I see this going. Disney's going to be selling everybody Star Wars droids.
Well, I can buy my own CP3O.
You got it. And you should have saw the reaction to the crowd. Everybody wanted one.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about what?
Nostalgic.
Yeah, you're talking about 50 years worth of Star Wars. 70s, right? Oh, I'm 50 myself, so yeah. I wasn't alive for the what year did the first one come out? Because I was born in 74.
79, sir.
Yeah, 79. I was 5 years old, so I was young, but
I was right there.
because I remember part two. Like even though I was 5, I remember part two better than I do part one. I remember part one. I was sitting there, I watched it with my family, but I was old enough when part two came out. I'm your,
So I was 10. So
yeah.
I was
When
there.
I'm
I
your
was there
father,
for it.
yeah, I was there for it. So you're talking like literally from 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010, 2020. You're talking 50 years worth of generations of people that would love to own their own robot. And then have you seen the advancements with the lightsaber? Dude, they're coming out with things now that are just ridiculous. All right, so who's next on the list? Meta. Meta's number one offer obviously is their social media, but what they're offering to the end user is VR. And NVIDIA has their Quattro VR. My prediction, guys, I said it a year ago. I'm going to add it to my list. They have diversified to compete with every single one of the Mag 7. Why should we offer it to you when you're using our product and technology and infrastructure? We can just build it for ourselves. And this is directly competing with Meta and Apple. And I would even say that Apple has a bigger VR space. Don't quote me on that. And then we get into Broadcom. I told you they were going to compete with Broadcom. They have something called NVIDIA Spectrum X. This is Ethernet. They're advancing the speed of the Ethernet. I told you they were going to get into it. And they're probably going to expand to fiber optics and all that as well. And then somebody mentioned a couple of days ago that they have another company competing with Starlink. I think somebody posted a video on that or an article. I would not doubt if NVIDIA partners with that company. Because how does it always work? It starts off with a partnership so they can learn all the ins and outs. They get all the information that they need, and then they create their own product. And how do we know? Because they're also working on 6G. They're also working on wireless networks, trying to introduce 6G to the mobile network, to the mobile industry.
I can see AI when they start making this they data centers and making it local. I can see them getting aboard to utilize this service, Ethernet. That's something you say or hear every day.
Yeah, and you can see the applications of it, because if we do get into that environment where there are all these robots, those robots are going to have to connect to the internet or some kind of an Ethernet or some kind of a mobile network or internet access, whether it's satellite, whether it's 6G, whether it's Ethernet, whether it's coax or broadband, whatever it is. And then lastly, even though they're not a part of the Mag 7 anymore, NVIDIA Drive, they are programming, because it's something that he said in the presentation. He says every car is a computer. He says in this day and age, every single car on the road is a computer. The days of the old engines that doesn't have computer chips in it is gone. Every new model car has a computer chip. So NVIDIA has NVIDIA Drive ecosystem where they can program those cars, specifically the newer cars that are trying to go driverless. And what do I always say? They start off as a partnership, and then they will get all the information that they need, and then they'll build their own. Am I trying to say that NVIDIA will have their own Tesla version? We don't know. But they're partnering with several car companies. And I also wanted to mention that as well. Inside of his presentation, close to the end of it, he mentioned partnering with AT&T. And that just kind of talks about the whole Broadcom partner. He's partnering, they partner a lot with T-Mobile and AT&T. Everything starts with a partnership and then develops into competition. Because the concept is you're already using our infrastructure. We can just build it our own. So if anybody in 2025, 2026, or 2027 tell you that NVIDIA is no longer valuable, NVIDIA has reached its limit, because this is what they're going to do in the news. NVIDIA has reached its peak. You need to sell. I want you to slap them dead in the mouth. Well, I heard that NVIDIA is no longer valuable. What are you talking about? Make sure you put baby powder on your hand before you do it.
And have a Jerry curl wig.
Did you guys see the video of the pimp that went inside the church and slapped the deacon because he owed him money?
I was going to say, was that real?
Yes, I saw that. That was crazy.
Oh my goodness.
He,
Give me my money.
He arrived early too, they said.
You want to use but not pay? Oh man, I was on the floor.
You better not mess with Silky.
Oh my goodness. You can't make this stuff up, man. Oh my God. NVIDIA, I'm going to say it again. I said it earlier this year. I said it last month. NVIDIA is the most powerful corporation on the planet. Everybody was thinking that Tesla was going to be the Cyberdyne systems. No, it is NVIDIA.
Funny how the Tesla stock went up as soon as they brought those astronauts back.
Yeah, I noticed that too. I can only imagine what they were going through. I think it was 9 months they were stuck out there.
And them shooting up rockets just to have them explode before they got the right one had to be nervous watching
Yeah.
that.
But he does that on purpose though. Like he overclocks the rocket. He's trying to get a level of propulsion. So he overclocks the engine trying to get that propulsion. He doesn't learn anything. Remember I said about failing? He doesn't learn anything by shooting it up. He's got to overclock it, to try to get it to where he wants it. So he would rather explode. He'll save more money exploding that rocket, even though that rocket is worth like five, 10, 100, whatever it is. He would rather lose that money on exploding it than sending up 10 rockets. He doesn't learn anything from the successes. So I understand. No one else understands this. Everyone looks at a rocket exploding as horrible. Oh, he's got rockets exploding every time. He's doing that on purpose. They get so much more data on a failure than they do on a success. You don't learn anything from a success. This is powerful information, guys. This is going to drive the markets. Because as I said, NVIDIA is going to be the infrastructure, or is currently the infrastructure of all the Mag 7 and all of the industry market leaders. So as NVIDIA progresses, everyone progresses. And if they're making everything open source, let's go back to the open source. When they open up that open source, that's not just for, individual programmers. You're gonna have corporations that are taking that programming language and creating applications that they can use. And then once again, NVIDIA just adds it to their library for other corporations to use. But this is powerful. And we only see that these are the base products that they're coming out with. 2 or 3 years from now, when they start combining all the technologies here and there, let's add this over here and this over here, and exponential products. And that's what the fifth industrial revolution is, right? Isn't that what I explained? You have several 100,000 applications by combining different sectors in the fifth industrial revolution, giving you that many more products. And it's even more exponential because think about it. How many chips does NVIDIA have? How many generations of chips do they have? At what point will their Hopper become obsolete? Because they just told you that they're going to advance into Rubin and Feynman. So at what point will their Hopper become obsolete? They just introduced the GTX chips for the end user. At what points will their older chips become obsolete? So they can interchange different chips, the mobile chip, the tablet chip. Exponential, the combinations of products that they can create. This is the reason why the Mag 7 is so scared of NVIDIA. This is why they're always trying to find another platform, another AI, another chip, because they know the game. You partner first, and then you use that partnership to break away with your own product. And they have no choice but to partner with NVIDIA. And NVIDIA is just collecting all that data. And all that partnership that they've been doing for the last 2 or 3 years, they're now at a point where they can offer their own products. They all knew this day was coming. And that's why I also said, because you'll notice that NVIDIA is selling off at a higher pace than the other Mac 7. That NVIDIA has been manipulated. And I already told you what that was. I said that the oligopoly is partnering with other investing firms they're still messing with NVIDIA, even though NVIDIA is at the top of the oligopoly. NVIDIA is dangerous to the rest of the Mag 7.
They already tried to start. They already started talking down the stock yesterday. I thought that was weird.
That's what they do, man. But like I said, with this understanding of what NVIDIA has, now, like I said, guys, I could have done a secret session on this. But if I can't guarantee the trade, I could have
What are your
easily
thoughts
done.
on the?
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Coach. I was going to wait till at the end of. But what are your thoughts on the oil and the dollar kind of adding a little smoke screen for them to kind of navigate through all this?
Well, that goes back to Powell. And I said that that's what Powell was going to do. Everything's positive. Everything's good. And that was kind of the announcement yesterday. And that's really why the stock market kind of elevated because of Powell's announcement. Everything was positive. We're good. Our economy's good. And it is. It's still good because the tariff wars is not going to start until next month. The economic events next month is going to impact. Now, right now, we still have the sentiment of the expectation and the fear and the uncertainty of the tariffs. But what do I tell you? Only go by what's actually applied. And come April 2nd, all of this stuff. Now, keep in mind, there's still tariff wars because he's already started it. So Europe and China and everybody is still, kind of, readjusting. But as far as us with the April 2nd deadline, you're just going to see a nice reverberation of, shock waves. So, Powell is letting us know right now, all the metrics are saying good and positive, bullish. And here's something else I'm going to tell you. You're going to see Powell do a lot more of those announcements. Usually he waits once a month, doesn't he? Watch Powell and the rest of them. You're going to see the governor start speaking up a lot. Reassurance, reassurance, reassurance. They got to interject positivity into the markets. And that's what really drives the markets down, guys. We can have a healthy economy. We can have a healthy stock market, but it's not based on that. This is an environment of sentiment and emotion. That's what really controls the markets. And many, many times the real metrics do not line up with the feeling and sentiment. So the powers that be, they know their job. Their job is to control the emotion of the trader. That's what their job is right now. Calm the markets down. Interject that positivity and that bullish. Get people back to buying. Get people back to investing. And when I went to the news after that Powell announcement, that's all I saw in the media. Nothing but positive and bullish. Now, here's my prediction, guys. These are the companies. Now, this is back in 2023. So we know that this is not accurate because Broadcom has already kind of came above the 1 trillion. But I want to give you my prediction. Who will be the next company to come into the Magnificent Group? We're gonna call it that until they come out with a better name. So here's my next prediction. I showed you 2 weeks ago, it might have been last week, that it was last week. I told you that Warren Buffett knew that the correction was coming. Well, he knew that a sell-off was coming. So that's what he was doing last year. When we saw him selling the Apple, selling all these major corporations, everybody was, oh, what is Warren Buffett doing? Like I said, they'll follow Warren Buffett until he mentions something about crypto, until you mention something about derivatives. Then he don't know what he's talking about. But that man knew a sell-off was coming, and he sold off some of his investments that he's had for a decade or longer. And I showed you an article last week that sell-off, because we thought that he reallocated all of that capital. He didn't. The article said that Berkshire Hathaway is sitting on $340 billion. What do you think he's going to do with that $340 billion? He has all that capital, all that liquidity to buy current companies. And we don't know if he's going to retire sometime soon, if he's going to let his protege come in and take over. Because if the protege comes in and takes over, then that's going to be a rise in tech. Because we know that Warren Buffett doesn't invest in tech. He only invests in things that he understands. So if Warren Buffett steps away and the apprentice or the protege comes in with $340 billion and they start investing in the Mag 7 and all this AI and all these robotics, what do you think is going to happen with Berkshire Hathaway? They're going to come in to the $1 trillion arena. Now, keep in mind, it's still private. You can't just go out and buy Berkshire. But it is going to be the next company that comes into the $1 trillion arena. I think at some point they were already at like 900. But with the sell off and everything, they're sitting at a little bit under 8. Now, keep in mind, this is also 2 years ago. So I think they may be still sitting at about 900. But Berkshire Hathaway, that's my prediction. The next company to come in, if they take that $340 billion sell-off and they reallocate it into current investments, when this thing rises back up, you're going to see Berkshire come into the $1 trillion arena. Now, Eli Lilly is a pharmaceutical company. I'm not stressing that because you already know I don't invest in pharmaceuticals. To me, it's blood money. I would never invest in pharmaceuticals. And here's another thing. You can look down here. You see the finance with JP Morgan. You see Walmart sitting at about 500, and you see Exxon sitting at about 510. They're not going to go anywhere. They have to come up with something new. That's the reason why Broadcom came in, because they have to have a new product. Walmart, JP Morgan, and Exxon is not going to be introducing a new product that everybody wants. So they're going to sit where they are. Unless they come out with a new product, they're not going to rise into the 1 trillion anytime soon. You're going to see another company that'll overpass them and come into the 1 trillion. But for now, you're going to see Berkshire come in next if they take that 350 and allocate it correctly. That is my next prediction. That doesn't benefit us because it's a private company and the Eli Lilly is pharmaceutical. I don't even talk about it. But I do want to mention this because this is another prediction that as the Mag 7 goes into the 3 trillion and beyond, that's going to open up new investments, new technology, new partnerships. That's going to allow them to come into new $1 trillion companies. And I'm going to give you another prediction. Let me show you this real quick. Because this is another one of my predictions. And I looked it up yesterday. And I think I posted it in WhatsApp. So let me get the article from WhatsApp. Now, I did mention this before. Like I already showed you an article because this dude was heavily invested in Tesla. One of the biggest investors. All right, Ross Gerber. So I showed you several articles a few weeks ago where he was the first person. I'm like, I said, this is the writing on the wall. I said, if you got Ross Gerber that's been bigging up Tesla for the last 5 years, and he sold off, you guys might remember when I said this, I said one of Tesla's largest investors sold off, writing on the wall. And now he's not just selling off. This man is now going on a news, what do they call it? Circuit. He's going on a circuit to all the news platforms, asking Elon Musk to step down. I told you it was going to happen. And keep in mind, this is not the same person that I showed you yesterday. The Psi Capital, there are several investors that I told you what they were going to do. Let's get Elon Musk removed as CEO. So this is another one of my predictions. This one's already come true. I told you the investor was going to ask for his resignation. And then once they removed Elon Musk, willingly or unwillingly, you're going to see Tesla. It's going to take a little bit of time, but they have to rebrand it. I would even change the name of the car to Newton. Einstein. Come up with another major scientist. But the Tesla name might be tainted at this point. But either way, they gotta basically kind of rebrand themselves without Elon Musk. Because here's the thing that I'm saying about Tesla since day one. The amount of infrastructure that they have the value. So just because that company came down does not diminish the value that they have. So it's another trading opportunity, but there's a lot of restructure that has to happen before that company turns around and then it rides back up into the $1 trillion area. And it may take another 5 years. I think they can do it within about 2. I think by next year, if they get rid of Elon and restructure and rebrand, Tesla can come back. Between their cars, the AI, and the robots, they're going to have to extend some of their timetables, some of their deadlines. But if they can get rid of Elon Musk, Tesla is still a good buy. It's just going to be a 2-year kind of hiatus while they rebuild, restructure, rebrand. and then see that company turn around. And I'm trying to write down these dates of my predictions. But I believe in the next 2 years you're going to see Tesla back in the Magnificent Seven. Because I tell you over and over again, value does not go away. Even though a lot of Tesla's value is their brand. And that's why I say the reason why it's fallen down was a brand loyalty, brand, recognition, brand trust. All of that's gone. So they have to rebuild that part of the value, the intrinsic value. Once the intrinsic value is recognized, then the rest of the value, the asset value, the cash value, the share value, and the market value. But they have to tweak their intrinsic value first.
At what point would you look for signals to say that Tesla's a buy or whatever it will be?
I know that there's such a large journey back to the $1 trillion area. So I usually give it a couple of $100 billion. And I know that sounds crazy because their value right now has gone down by half, right? They were sitting at about 1.1. I think they're right at about 500, 600 million. So let it get up to about 7. That's how you know it's a turnaround. Obviously, the front end, getting rid of Elon, all of this. And then once again, you're looking for positive articles coming out because they use the media as advertisement. So you'll see Elon remove first. You'll see them start to broadcast and showcase their technologies. New car features, new robots, new AI. You're going to see them start talking about what Tesla can do. They're going to start introducing and broadcasting their value. After you see all of those articles, you'll start seeing their revenue start to increase, and you'll start seeing their market value go up.
So
and
along.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. No, I apologize. Go ahead.
Well, no, if they, because I don't know how far down it's going to go. But if, let's say right now Elon quits or resigns or whatever, even at right now, if they're seeing about 500, I will let it get up to about 6 or 7. Then I can invest, and then I can ride it from 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11.
Yeah.
Still plenty of money to make.
So if they go through their rebranding process and they completely change their name and this, that, and the other, you'd still be looking at the old, hey, where Tesla was at this, so this is my benchmark in terms of like say for example, I'm seeing targets of $130 a share as opposed to it's whatever it is now. I forget what it is. I think Wells Fargo or someone put out a target estimate of 130. So, which obviously is a big fall. And but if you look at it's okay to still be looking at it as Tesla, even if they rebrand it as something totally different.
Well, here's another prediction that I'll give you is that now that it's come down so far, as they're riding it back up to the $1 trillion valuation, you might see a stock split. Because here's the thing about value investing. You have to make it affordable. You have to make it a discount. You got to make it something that people want. So let's say people don't want to spend $130 a share, then split it. That might be what they have to do to gain attraction for it. It's not losing any value, just splitting the shares. But I think people will be willing to buy Tesla at $75 than $150. But we'll see if they go that route. That's just one option. But if they go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to say, I think for a comparison of this kind of situation, I might start looking at um, other companies who've had similar things like Papa John's and that kind of a thing. You know, looking for
Oh,
others too. Just
gotcha,
hey,
gotcha, gotcha.
hey,
Yeah,
how do we how does the evolution, the perception change? Like you said, it may take a few years or a couple of years. You know, it seems like it was pretty fast for a company like Papa John by ousting the bad seeds and all of
yeah.
that. And what did they do to win sentiment again? Because my gosh, I don't think I've ever seen a fall like this. But
Yeah, it was bad. It was bad. And I'll tell you the best thing they did, because and I'll give you an example. I'll give you a perfect example. I saw a commercial. Target is doing and they call it the Circle Week, where everything's on discount. You know, everything. I've seen this before. They have this Circle Week, and I don't think it's called Circle Week, but they have this whole week of just, and I guess it's their version of like the Amazon Day, right? So they have an entire week of Target where you can get everything on discount. On the commercial, we know what there's a boycott on Target right now, and Target is trying to turn around with their we got rid of DEI. I'm sorry, we made a mistake, and they realized that how much did they lose already? 100 billion.
a
So in the
lot.
commercial, who do you think that they showed in the parking lot getting out the car to go inside the shop?
People of color, I'm sure.
Of course. So what Papa John did, best decision that they made. They brought in Shaq.
Yep.
That's what turned the company around.
It did. And that's what I'm wondering about with a Tesla. And that's why I kind of brought it up. It's like, man, what could they do to really change their image fast?
They got to bring in somebody that is well known, that's respected. They got to put somebody in that CEO that's well respected.
And even if they don't put them in as CEO, it can't be
As an
some kind of a
investor.
token. It can't be a
Yeah,
tokenship ambassador kind of a thing. But
exactly.
but but no, I mean I didn't grow up being a Shaq fan, not to divulge, and you know, I mean, not to fall off too far, but looking at the moves he's made, and he gave credit to Junior Bridgman, who passed, I think, last week. You know, he if you wouldn't know that he was a basketball player, but he's like that. I saw the story where here are the top 10 richest past basketball players,
Yep.
and the guys you expect, you kind of see them there, but like sitting at number 3 was a guy named Junior Bridgman,
Yes.
and just
Unknown.
turned out to be a shrewd business
Yep.
guy. And he advised Shaq.
Yep.
Shaq
Yep.
went and
Yep.
talked to him. So that the Papa John thing came in my mind because I'm like, man, they got to do something like that because I mean, I stopped eating Papa John's for 2 years. What would make me go back to some kind of hey, I
Yep.
was in the neighborhood. I'm going to go into a Tesla store.
I'll give you an example. And they tried to do this. It didn't work. But when Trump left The Apprentice, who did they get?
Yeah, Schwarzenegger.
That's what I mean. If they were to bring in somebody like Schwarzenegger because even though you may not agree with um Schwarzenegger being a Republican, red and blue, all that kind of crap, people still liked him, even though they were a Democrat. They grew up watching this man's movies for 4 decades. So he transcends the political arena.
Yeah.
So if you were to bring in somebody like that overshadows, because Elon Musk is attached so much to this political thing, that you need somebody like that that's in that political arena but transcends the parties. So bringing somebody in like Schwarzenegger that transcends the parties, that's what's going to position. And like I said, you don't have to bring him in as a CEO, but like Shaq, bring him in as an investor. And I'm just giving that's the first thing that came to my mind. But somebody like that either has to come in as the face of the company, like in their advertisement, come in as an investor, or come in as the CEO. You need something like that to turn it around.
Interesting. Sorry to derail us a little bit, but
No.
that's something.
That's a good conversation, because I'll give you the equivalent. I'll give you the equivalent. Is Tesla is going belly up. Nobody can afford, because that was a thing that nobody understood. Why would Elon Musk target being a part of the Republican Party when his entire demographic with Tesla is Democrats that can afford it? So it would make more sense if you were truly focused on the benefit of Tesla, that you would have backed the Democrat. But his agenda and his thinking and his ideology would have never fit in there. But I say all that to say this, because it's tone deaf to try to sell the Tesla truck. That thing is so expensive. And then they shoot a commercial with who? Anybody know who shot that commercial? And this was like about 3 or 4 days after they had the Tesla presentation at the White House. Does anybody know who shot the Tesla commercial last week? This shows you the level of tone deaf. Nobody knows this? It was Kim Kardashian.
What?
Yeah, it's funny. Oh, it's funny.
Who, nobody will say no to him, huh? What?
And that's the benefit of being the richest man in the world. You can make a phone call. And if somebody wants that connection and wants that influence, and we know that that's exactly what the Kardashians are.
I would think that was Trump saying, "Hey, you remember all those guys I released for you? Well,
Exactly.
I need you in
Exactly.
Washington tomorrow."
It probably wants something like that. I'm pretty sure that phone call came from Trump, not Elon. But she shot a commercial. I haven't seen it. I just saw the headline. I have no desire to see the commercial. But I see her laying her 40, 50-year-old self on the car instead of going out and getting a younger, prettier person. It's just tone deaf. They would have done better by getting the 2 younger Jenners, the supermodel, put her on the car. But that's what I mean. They got to do something like that, but the opposite direction. They got to get somebody that's reputable, that's respectful, and that transcends generations and political parties. But if they can do that, Tesla, it will reposition themselves. Like I said, let me restate it. They have to recover their intrinsic value. And that's what their branding is. Their branding is intrinsic. Once they recover their intrinsic value, the rest of the value is locked in, guys. Their asset value, their cash value, their market share, their share value, and their market value. But they have to recover their intrinsic value first. And then everything else will come back. And we're not going to see that for another 2 years. And I always give this long prediction, but I'm telling you, I have seen the markets recover so fast. My 2-year predictions have always been several months. So they may be able to recover by the end of 2025 if they can get rid of Elon Musk. Any questions on this?
How much of an impact you think the price of oil happened to go down a little bit, help the momentum of the markets, including the video, not the dollar, but just the oil, since OPEC is trying to impact that?
Somebody posted an economist And I followed him. I don't know who gave it to me, but the guy's very decent. But there's a guy on TikTok that only talks about oil, and I don't know who it was that posted his video.
That's Mr. Global.
Oh yeah, Mr.
I,
Global. There you go.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I
I
followed
posted
him.
it.
Yeah, that. Thank you so much for that. Something that he said that even I did not recognize, because now it clicked when he said it, because the last time it happened, or the last time that they divulged, or the last time that I read that it happened, was Saudi Arabia when they first put OPEC together. If you go back to the original story, the origin story of OPEC, when they combined all of those original oil producing countries, Saudi Arabia was not in line. Saudi Arabia was playing both ends. They were overproducing and underproducing, so their united front wasn't powerful. They could not leverage their cartel because there was somebody out of pocket. They were still giving oil away. They were still selling it for other than the price that they had agreed upon. So it took several years for them to get Saudi Arabia in line. It just, and I guess they had to see it over time. It benefits you to only offer the price that we agree upon. But Saudi Arabia was on the back end selling it for cheaper and overproducing and all this stuff. But something that Mr. Global mentioned that I never thought about, because it's not just about OPEC, but they have OPEC Plus, which are other companies that are also. And then some of those companies may not agree with OPEC's decision on oil production. So there are, at any given time, one of those OPEC or OPEC Plus countries may, underneath, they may over and underproduce. And then because of that, that is where the fluctuation of the oil prices, because they have to change the price because there's a different supply and demand.
I think
So
in
if
this
Russia
instance,
decides we don't like the agreed upon OPEC ratio of production, we're gonna produce more on the back end and sell it to Canada, or Venezuela overproduces and sells it in South America. you know, they're not going to get those numbers to sell because they're monitoring, obviously, they're monitoring the metrics of every oil producer so they can figure out what the oil production is. And if they figure out that there's an overproduction, they have to come down off their price.
they caught Kazakhstan overproducing.
Exactly. That's what I
That
saw when he mentioned
yeah,
that. I'm like, yeah, that would have to happen.
that's why
Not
the oil.
everybody is, yeah, not everybody's going to agree with OPEC.
Yeah, that's why the prices went down. Is because like you said, there was an overproduction, oversupply that wasn't supposed to be there. And
And
he
I and
said
I,
he said that those countries do it all the time. That's their one of their biggest jobs is to catch who's not in
who's
compliance.
not doing it? You got it. And I'm going to give you something else that sparked in my head was the TV show Landman, because they say that these cartels would steal their planes, and then several days later the plane is back. They would steal their trucks, and then several days the trucks would be back.
They borrowed
So
them, man.
even
They
so
borrowed
yeah,
them.
so you got to think about that as well, that there are these third party, cartel and mafia and yakuza that are basically selling the oil. They're stealing the oil. They probably got their own workers that know how to pump oil. They steal the oil. They steal the trucks. They deliver it on the back end to somebody, and then they just give all them the trucks and the airplanes back. So you got to think about that as well, because that also has to be factored into the supply and demand. It hit me like a ton of bricks when he said it. I'm like, yeah, there would have to be people that are not sticking to the production decision. So I'm bringing that up to kind of show you what, or if and when oil prices move up and down, it's going to be based on that. OPEC is usually solid with their production levels. We know the U.S. Is well, U.S. is kind of transitioning because of the Canada Mexico thing, but U.S. is also kind of overproducing as well. They've been doing that since 2018. But any fluctuation in prices is going to be based on the tariff war and these little disobedient uh, OPEC members that don't want to play that they don't want to play ball. That's what I would check into, and I'll tell you, check into the weekly EIA. EIA does a weekly production levels for the U.S. because the U.S. is the #1 producer. So check your weekly EIA reports, because the website is not just going to give you the reports; they're going to give you the reasons behind the reports. So check the EIA website, and you'll get a lot of information on where oil is. Good question though. Always bring it back to dollar and oil, and then obviously we know right now. I actually think that with the tariff wars, because somebody else mentioned this, another narrative that somebody said that basically Trump was trying to get the Fed to lower rates, and this I think this was even before he got inaugurated, and Powell was like, nope, and then because Powell said nope, Trump said, well, I'm going to fire you, and he was like, you can't fire me, my term is not up. So basically, people are saying that by doing the trade wars, they're forcing him to change the interest rates. Because by changing the inflation, you have to change the interest rates because of it. So that's something else that you're going to see kind of adjust itself is interest rates. And I don't know if it's going to go up. I don't know if it's going to come down. I would assume you would think that if inflation is going up, they would have to raise the interest rates again, but I don't know. But I would look for, they said one time a year you would get it in 2025. Nope, that's off the table. I promise you we're going to get more than one interest rate announcement in 2025. Just based on the tariff wars. And I think we're going to get it sometime in Q2. Another prediction. Interest rates are going to go, like I said, I don't know if it's going to go up or down. I'm not an economist. I don't understand how the intricacies of how that works. But I do know that we're going to get another interest rate announcement sometime in the next 3 months. Any final questions, guys? All right, wonderful, wonderful. You guys are now updated. You understand how this Tesla thing works. I'm sorry, this NVIDIA thing works. NVIDIA is going to drive the rest of the stock market for the next 3 years. Because that's the predictions they gave. They gave their predictions for 2025, 26, and 27. Now we got to see them implement everything. And then they're transitioning from corporate to consumer. They're competing with every single one of the Mag 7 and beyond. As they build their infrastructure, they're building the infrastructure of everyone else. You're going to see NVIDIA recover from the correction. They're going to get back to that $3 trillion area. And then once all of this consumer, once this entire diversified product line comes out, you're going to start seeing them pull away. And like I said, the billionaires always say the best time to buy is when everyone else is selling. This is a prime example. You should be buying when everybody else is selling. And I'm going to bring it back to what I said yesterday. You can't buy if you don't have a lot of money. Why? Because you have to have the liquidity to withstand the market moving. So even when the market's coming down, you may not have the money to buy a lot, because to hold on to it, you need a level of liquidity, because you don't know if the market's going to continue to drop or go back up. So you have to have enough money to sustain the market movement. So that quote is really for other major investors. But we can still be patient, wait for the right time, get in on the video. I already told you guys what your goal should be. Try to get up to 100 shares in NVIDIA. And at this point, with NVIDIA price coming down, perfect time to start buying. Get up to 100 shares of NVIDIA. And what did I tell you? You're going to be a millionaire by default, because it only has to go up 1,000%. And we've seen NVIDIA go up to, 2,500%, 2,500%. They can do another 1,000, especially now that they've gone down. They can easily go back up 1,000%. You're an instant millionaire if you have 100 shares of NVIDIA.
Aaron, do you see NVIDIA splitting again in the next 5 years?
Yes. I've already given that prediction.
Well,
They're probably going to split twice. Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. They're going to split twice, I think. They've already split twice, didn't they? Since this new rally, I think they've already split twice. I see them splitting at least 2 more times.
So,
And they're
Coach,
also. No, go ahead.
no, I said so. The competition for the number 2 spot should be pretty dicey. Lots of momentum behind that, huh? In the next 3 years, since they've gapped everyone.
Oh yeah. Like I said, Microsoft is still going to be number 2, but they don't have a new offering. Oh, and I wanted to update. Well, no. It's still who was it? Don't have an AI? Oh my, yeah. Apple doesn't have its own AI. Every other Mac 7 has its own AI. Well, Broadcom also doesn't have it. So those are only 2 that don't have their own AI. And Apple doesn't have a new product. And they're not going to rise until they do. And the rest of the Mac 7 are not going to rise until they come up with a new product. That's the reason why NVIDIA is gonna lap them. They're gonna completely lap every single person until somebody can come up with a new revolutionary product that the consumer wants. Everyone else is dead in the water. Because I brought up that concept of like Taco Bell. Taco Bell has 5 items, and all they do is repackage it. That steak burrito is the same thing as that. I don't even know. I haven't been to Taco Bell in years, but all they do is take the same 5 things and just repackage it, and that's all Apple and Microsoft and Google been doing. Take the same products and repackage it, trying to make you believe that you're getting something new. But I'm telling you, the Apple users are catching on. They're finally catching on. You know how many Apple users I have heard in the last year that say they finally realized that Samsung and Android is better? We've been saying this. We've been telling this to you Apple users for years. You've been falling for the scam. You're buying an inferior product for more money. But until the rest of the Mag 7 comes out with their own new product, something new to offer to the consumer, because keep in mind, it's all about subscription. People have to feel like they're getting their money's worth with a subscription. If they're not, they're going to cancel the subscription. And that's how they're making the billions. So yeah, NVIDIA is going to easily lap everybody until a new corporation comes or they come up with a new technology.
Yeah, I've been
That's
trying
how.
to see.
Go ahead.
I've been trying to see what the products that Broadcom is coming up because they've been coming up pretty strong, but I didn't know what products they were adding. I know they bought one of the companies I do work with, one of the cloud and virtualization, but I don't know what new products they came up with. I was going to ask you that.
I have not really dived into Broadcom. I'm probably going to do that probably in the coming weeks. But I know that they're internet based. They're coax, broad, all this kind of stuff, cable, all this stuff. So they're going to try to stay within that wheelhouse. But I say the same prediction. They're going to have to diversify if they want to stay in the Mag 7. So they're going to have to start buying up different companies and offering different things and partnering with the Mag 7 and all of this. Otherwise, Broadcom's not going to stay in. Hopefully they're learning from what Nvidia is doing.
Good stuff.
Has to happen. All right, so tomorrow's Friday. I did tell you guys that I kind of wanted to reintroduce the fifth industrial revolution. I think I'm going to do that presentation tomorrow. I'm going to redo it because I told you I added an extra section of the healthcare. I'm going to add that to the equation. We're gonna redo all of that, kind of go over that industrial revolution. So it just kind of refocuses us on being able to find the value. And then you guys may not know, but I have a process in the course. So I'm going to pull that process out. We're going to redefine the entire fifth industrial revolution. We're going to go over how to analyze with that process in your course. So we're going to do the fifth industrial revolution tomorrow. And that's going to set us up going forward as we see the markets rebuild. All right, guys, we're going to leave it there. Thank everybody for their attention, for their attendance, for their participation. If I don't see you in the student room, I wasn't able to do the masterclass, but you'll get that worksheet. I already got it ready. You'll get that worksheet in the next hour or so. Come into the student room if you have questions over anything we discuss in the classroom. Come to the master classroom if you have anything to discuss with the worksheet. All right. If I don't see you guys in the WhatsApp community, I'll see you guys bright and early tomorrow morning around 7:15 for my students in Zoom, 7:45 for everyone else on TikTok and YouTube. Everyone be safe. Don't lose money in the markets. We'll see you tomorrow morning around 7:15, 7:30. Thanks so much, guys.